We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Phone's in the Faraday bag. It must be Wednesday, November the 5th, the day after Election Day. Some of you are in a real sad mood. For some reason, I'm very gleeful. I think that the results last night were really obvious. Did you guys not see that coming? Was that confusing to somebody? People are upset because New York is now going to need to be walled off. We're going to need Snake Plissken. We're going to need to go out there and rescue the people who are behind enemy lines. Communism for all. Government will solve all your problems. What did you think these guys were talking about? Who did you think lived in New York? Who did you think lived in Virginia? Oh, I lived there for 5 years. I'm not an expert on Virginia, but I'm just telling you, I lived in Virginia. And in 2020, as things moved along, sort of the COVID insanity, and I watched everybody staying home to stop the spread. And there were like the prequel to the zombie movie where I saw signs flashing on the roadway saying, turn around, stay at home, protect your neighbors. I was like, oh boy, we got to get the hell out of here. These people will kill us and our family. No doubt in my mind, they will eat our corpses. I'm not saying that figuratively. I'm saying it literally. That was pretty clear. So my wife and I made plans and we left in early 2021. It was on purpose. That wasn't an accident. I took the furthest flung post I could find. My two options were Shelby, Montana, which you don't know where that is, and nobody else does either, but it's pretty cool. It's a really neat town, actually, for a tiny little place. And the other option was Las Cruces, New Mexico, which people didn't even know was in America when I moved there. My friends were like, is that an Oconus post? No, bro. New Mexico is America. It's just like the blue part of America at the bottom. Yeah, I got the hell out. This was pretty clear. You guys are shocked that Jay Jones got elected attorney general after saying that he would shoot his political opponents in text messages to his buddies, or that he would like laugh at their dying children. Who did you think was running for office? So we got a CIA lady who's going to be the governor of Virginia. Everybody who thought that there was a sea change that happened on the East Coast, did you guys lose your freaking minds? That was just low tide. The ocean rolls back in. It always does. Wow. Okay, so anyway, so we're going to have some fun. For those of you that are still behind the enemy lines, you guys know where you are. You're north of the Potomac. Basically, all of you north of the Potomac, you're behind enemy lines. If you want to escape from New York or the equivalent thereof, yeah, it's time. Virginia will still remain purplish. You know why? Because there's these mountains and these hillbilly types out there that are my folks that still own guns and have property. It will be okay for those of you that are out there. But man, you're near an urban area on the East Coast, New England area. What a day to wake up. Okay, so I'm laughing. That's not very fun. We're going to talk about a bunch of serious topics today because I've got a bunch of them in, and they're kind of a grab bag in some ways. We're going to talk about the election thing that happened. The government shutdown has now officially reached the longest shutdown in U.S. government history. Thank God, you know, honestly, because all it keeps proving is that the lights keep turning on. My kids keep waking up and giving me kisses. We made coffee this morning and the taps worked. I was able to filter my water, no problem. The gas turned on and we heated up our kettle. My life is the same, but not for everybody. If you're traveling, air travel sucks. Terrible disaster yesterday with a UPS plane. I have a video that actually shows two things. One, it shows a horrific explosion of a UPS plane that was bound for Hawaii, and it had something like 280,000 gallons of fuel on it. And it is unbelievable how horrifically crazy that looks when you see it. The other thing is the video that I have shot has a woman screaming in Spanish in the middle of America. And that itself is a thing. If you wondered why the elections went the way they did, is because somebody may have imported like millions of people here, and hundreds of thousands of them have access to our voting rolls. So since we haven't seen any cleanup by any of the so-called red states or any of the blue states or anything else, like nobody has fixed the problems that existed in 2020 and could have reared their head in 2024 if they thought they could get away with it. Yeah, what do you expect? What did you expect was going to happen? Elections are going to keep going the way they did. America is basically divided on a razor's edge, and it's going to flip one side or the other. All right, what else do we got here? Politico assessing the absolute, what do they call it? I have to get the word right. Domination by Democrats in the election. Americans are blaming Trump for the shutdown. I told you this would happen. I told you they should just own it. They still have an opportunity to do that. We're going to get the New York Times reflection on a communist socialist mayor. CNN's reflection as well. Kind of funny, young people, idealistic. And then we're going to talk a little bit, because I promised it yesterday, about the FBI screw up in Michigan, which is really significant in so much as it shows you a flailing FBI. How are you going to root out corruption when you have the clown that's running it cheering on finding handwritten garbage notes from Jim Comey, like he somehow, was able to translate the Dead Sea Scrolls with it? Like, oh, look what we found. It's the secret. It's the Rosetta Stone. No, it's his garbage throwaway notes, and it proves nothing. So we got Kash Patel that's still out in Japan. We had this goofy firing situation where multiple agents, it could be as little as 4, it could be as many as 15, were fired in what my buddy referred to as a slaughter at the Washington field office. And then some of them were rehired. And then immediately when Kash Patel landed in Japan, they fired some of them again. So just shenanigans and chaos. And then a couple attempts, just like the Michigan thing, to talk about the great work that this agency is doing. Is it solving the crisis of all the people here that are doing things illegally? No. Is it solving the problems of a corrupt agency that does whatever the hell it wants? No. It's cheering on finding 2 kids who set off Roman candles in Boston. I'm not exaggerating. Literally a Roman candle inside of a locker at Harvard was enough to get a JTTF call out and a major, like, good job, FBI, from the Fox News clowns who have just basically outrun their coverage and are so irrelevant at this point that you might as well just be going to a tarot card reader if you want to get news from them. And lastly, and not least, I will save the end of the show. We are going to talk about the story that I alluded to just a little bit. The first piece of the timeline showed up yesterday just after our show ended. And my friend Steve Baker revealed something that is going to be, I think, useful to you guys to hear from a law enforcement guy, as a prior law enforcement person, as somebody who could explain to you a little bit about deadly force. And so if you're not familiar with deadly force and the way it works and why things may have gone down on January 6th the way they did, this is really the big, craziest story. This is the coup that keeps going on and why we haven't seen an FBI dive full headlongingly into it. They've been out there claiming that they're finding things, but they're not. There was a subversion that happened in this country in 2020, and multiple agencies of government were involved in it. And I'm going to make a case that Steve Baker just pulled the first part of the thread, which is going to get real wild. And I think this week is going to continue to get crazy. So that's a pretty big intro to talk about. Can I talk about my friends over at Silent? But before we do, can I just show you guys some gear? Because you guys know, if you're listening right now, you're missing out. Watch us on Spotify, KyleSerafinshow.com. I am prepared for whatever riot situation is coming our way. I got the helmet. I got the cameras. Like, we're ready for this. Part of my gear, excuse me as I lean off camera here. Part of my gear is like for the spicy air when they start shooting CS or tear gas or whatever's going to go our way, the pepper balls and so on. You got to make sure you protect your face. But lastly, I may need to be able to hold on to my phone and maybe have one that doesn't get hit with an EMP or something crazy. And so I've got my silent bag ready to go. This is really neat. This is the silent bag that I actually have set up for my riot gear. You can see it says it right here, SLNT, okay? Same creep people. It's got a little rigging that I've got because it's got a daisy chain on the outside of it. This holds a pole which can extend and carry a 360 camera for me. And the front of it is already rigged up so that I can put my 360 camera right here up on the arm. So we're ready to go, and it's going to be with silent equipment if things pop off and I decide to go do some riot coverage, which is kind of dumb when you're 43 and you've got kids. But you know what? I like to do dumb stuff sometimes. I'm still kind of a big kid. Okay, so we got to face it. There's the E3 Everyday Faraday bag. You're seeing it on the screen there with Aaron. He's the founder of the company. slnt.com/KYLE. You can save 15% with my name. Your phone is a tracking device. If you're worried about that sort of thing, government agencies and big tech and corporate data brokers and cyber criminals and other a-holes, assorted a-holes could be fighting for a piece of your digital footprint that they don't have to ask for. They can take it. The FBI can just buy it, by the way. They don't even have to subpoena that thing, which we're going to hear about. Oh, how do they get our information? They can literally buy it because you sign off on it when you carry your phone around and you put out those signals. What are the signals? Cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, NFC. All of these things are wireless radio frequencies coming out of your device that allow you to be tracked. If you don't want remote access, if you don't want someone tracking you, if you don't want breadcrumbs, Silent, it's slnt.com/KYLE is the place to go. It's the same technology special operations and counterintelligence and intelligence professionals around the world use to avoid surveillance, to secure their comms, to make sure that you've got a burner that stays safe. If you want to hold on to that, it's available to you. You can protect your kids, your family, your freedom. You can stop your digital footprint in its tracks, and you can pick it up when you choose to. Control your digital footprint. It's yours if you make it yours. Otherwise, it's everybody's, and you're just putting that data out into the world. Drop your phone into a silent Faraday sleeve like we do at the beginning of every one of these shows, and you too can go off grid, become completely silent, invisible to the outside world. It's slnt.com/KYLE. Save 15%. Make sure you're using my name at checkout. There is a link in the show description. All of the stuff that I've touched, and I've got waterproof backpack, waterproof Faraday roll-up bag. I've got the 2 different sleeves here. I've got the everyday Faraday backpack here, which is used for travel and so on. I'm a gear nut. I'm what they call a gear queer or a geardo. I don't shy away from that label, and I don't care. If you guys want really good gear, you can kind of trust me. All the people in the FBI that I knew used to too, including helmets and everything else. So, all right, let's get into today's program. Let's have some fun. I really am gleeful right now, and I can't help it. I'm just laughing, and I'm having a good time. And I already sent a message over to my buddy Tracy Beans, and I said, you know what? This stuff makes me laugh. It makes me smile. You know what also makes me smile? Like if you're watching on the screen right now, if you're listening to our audio, and you can switch over to video, you've got the chat running through on the left and the right. And my mother, I'm 43, and my mom tunes into my program, which is great. Thanks, Diane. It's cool. She's like, Kyle's a big kid. He just likes his gear. It's true. My wife knows. Can I share with you guys a story that has nothing to do with any of these things, just because it's kind of positive? When my wife met me, the day she actually met me, she tells me that the first thing that caught her eye about me was my incredible positivity about none other than gear, equipment. I was in her apartment. We were supposed to help her move, but she and her friend had already moved in. My best friend from high school and one of our other buddies from high school were standing there. I had just gotten out of being in basic training and a hard selection, and I'm driving off a military base. I'm super excited to be out in the world. And the first thing I do is I'm showing my buddies these freaking polarized sunglasses that I have, and I'm amped up. And I still remember doing it. I was standing at this countertop that we had in our little condo on Cesar Chavez, which is like downtown east side of Austin, Texas. I'm standing there. I'm just like, dude, these sunglasses, blah, 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 blah. And she came in and she was like, this dude is so excited about sunglasses. Anyway, it's a funny little story in our sort of romantic relationship. I'm always like that. I'm a big kid. I love the gear. I also sort of love the chaos. And maybe that's why gear is the solution to some chaos sometimes, right? Or it can at least make you prepared for it. I don't know. This is some chaos that we've got going on right now. For some people. Sorry, the government's closed, folks. Yeah, how many of you knew? How many of you woke up this morning and were like, oh no, the government is closed again? Here's where my sympathy goes away, because I'm in a unique situation. I've been through government shutdowns where I've gone, 1 day shorter than today's shutdown is, and I missed whatever number of paychecks they got. So I've done that. I've also missed a lot more paychecks than that. When I went initially in November of 2021, I got told on the 23rd of November, 2021, you can't come back into this office anymore. And I showed back up after Thanksgiving. I was actually hanging out with my parents. I was hanging out with my mom, my dad, my kids, my wife. We're all doing Thanksgiving. We come back in, and it's like November 26th or something, or 27th, whatever it was, that Monday after Thanksgiving. And I go in there, and my boss is like, dude, you can't be here. You got to go. And so from then on, they stopped paying. Okay, but I was like, well, can I use my leave? And they said, sure. So I burned my own dollars, my own leave. I got paid for a little bit. But in January, at the beginning of January, they stopped paying me all the way through January, all the way through February, and the first week of March. I remember it was my wife's 40th birthday that they started paying me again. I went back to work. I went for 2 solid months without getting any check whatsoever. Did not affect me even a little bit. And then I lost my job. All right. I lost my job as of June 1st of 22. They stopped paying me. And I didn't start making money again until sometime in the middle of 2023, probably like April or May. I started actually making money. That's a long time to go without a check. How many of you have gone 6 months, 9 months, 12 months without a paycheck? Or how many of you have gone 14 months out of 16 months and not gotten paid for it? That's a lot. Now, some of you have done it and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we can feel sympathetic for people that are not getting a government paycheck. It sucks to go to work and not get paid. It really does. And yet, welcome to government service. You're supposed to be serving. In theory, you would know this. And if you stop voting for people that didn't want to actually get the job done, their entire job in the legislature is to write a budget. It's a predictable thing that happens every single year. So acting like this is an emergency, it's nonsense. I made the analogy previously. I worked in EMS. We would go to these calls where people were hypertensive and morbidly obese, and they would have chronic heart failure and COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorders or diseases. They'd be all messed up. Their whole life was a disaster physically. Then you'd go into their place where they lived, and it was dirty, and it was not well taken care of, and they're smoking cigarettes, and they're eating junk food. And you're like, you can't have an emergency because your existence is an emergency. That is our federal government. That is the United States federal government right now. We live in an emergency. We are $38 trillion in debt, and in my lifetime, we've tripled the amount of debt that we had. I kid you not. You can walk back to when I was in high school and they were getting this doomsaying like, we're going to hit $10 trillion in debt. We've done that since I left the FBI, guys. Do you know how nuts it is to say that? We are beyond like being able to call 911 for an emergency. So acting like a government shutdown is somehow an emergent condition is absurd. We are living in an emergency. Our life as a nation is emergency. So we can't pick up the phone and call 911 and to act like we're going to somehow solve the problem by getting rid of the filibuster, which has been floated by Donald Trump, or some 36 days without a government opening. Dude, spare me. And since I've moved on into the new life where I work here behind a podcast desk, and as you guys know, I'm telling you about products and so on, I get paid 30, 60, sometimes 90 days in arrears. And that's not on a regular schedule. I get paid basically once a month if I'm lucky, and I'm having a budget based on not knowing when that's going to come in. It might come in 30 days. It might come in 3 months. So there's no idea when I'm going to get paid. Or maybe they don't pay me at all. Maybe they just decide not to. Maybe the company goes belly up. That's a possibility too. We all live in times of uncertainty. So this crying about this stuff is kind of crazy. But I do understand getting not paid. It does suck. And so this just happened in Houston, Texas. I guess the folks that were working for TSA has had enough. And you can imagine TSA workers are probably some of the lower paid government workers. They probably have some of the lower, experience and training. Some of them are veterans. Some of them have some, they couldn't make it as a cop somewhere, or they're not going to get hired, or maybe there wasn't an opportunity. So here we are with them just walking off on the job. Imagine you spent whatever it is, $600, $800 on a ticket. You're trying to fly somewhere, and then you're just wrapped around the building. All right, we're seeing the drive-up area. There are a lot of people on the ground there.
Damn, ain't no
Damn is
TSA.
right. I'm going to turn this down. TSA just left. I mean, this would be a real way to actually show what government shutdown is, and you'd find out where the government touches you. I don't really like the idea of essential, not essential. Like, most of it's not essential, so okay, fine. Wouldn't this incentivize people to not have a federal service do whatever it is TSA does? Tickle you?
Crazy.
What do you call that? What do you call it? What TSA does? The touchy, feely, molesty. In the military, we used to call it slappy tickle. Look how long these lines are. I mean, it goes outside the building. Now, if you guys have listened to this program for any period of time, you know that TSA is basically what I would call, it's like security theater. They're not actually doing catching. They're not really screening you in any meaningful way. They're like the guy with the wand. There's a meme of this. I've seen it. He's just kind of moving his hands near where your body is. That's it. TSA was missing 95+% of bomb and bomb components and weapon components when they were doing these red team audits. A red team is when you send somebody in that's going to basically pretend to be the bad guy, and they will do whatever devious means they can. So they have a weapon system. They break it up into multiple components. They send it in through a couple of guys. Can we get guns, ammunition? Can we get knives, box cutters, axes, hatchets, tomahawks? Can we get components that would be a bomb that should set off the sensors? And they basically always could. TSA essentially does almost nothing. I went and told the TSA people the last time I was out in Dulles, because I spent a lot of time behind the security cone in Dulles. When I was doing counterintelligence, when I was doing surveillance, we could badge in on the back end. We would sit behind the security without having gone through security. So I'm still armed. I still have all my equipment, surveillance equipment and so on, radio, you name it. And I would sit there for an hour on the back end, never leaving, watching people come through the security checkpoint. Not once did a TSA officer recognize that some dude is sitting here for way longer than it would take for a normal person to sit there and get his shoes on and leave. No one ever looked backward and said, hey, what are you doing back here, man? Never. For 3 years, I would intermittently do that. And I went and told them that. And they laughed and they were like, yeah. like they seem like nice people, but they had no idea. They have no idea that FBI agents, that DHS agents from HSI, from DEA are sitting there doing surveillance on targets coming through the security checkpoint. They have no idea. They don't know who's coming through. It's sort of funny to me. Not in a ha-ha way, but like in a quirky way. Like, why do we pay for this? What are we doing? So government shutdown, you're not going to hear me cry. Let me read a little bit from ABC News. The government shutdown on Wednesday, that's this morning, entered the 36th day, officially becoming the longest shutdown in U.S. history. That means that the 2 longest shutdowns in American politics have occurred under Donald Trump. Well, I think that actually doesn't say as much about Donald Trump as it does about the dysfunctionality of our time. That's like saying that people are the fittest and most capable athletes, that we have the highest level of performance today, and it's under like fill in the blank. Well, it's because we have better knowledge, we have better training, we have more scientific access to, university studies in physiology. So we have the fastest and the hardest hitting sports that we've ever had, right? They would act like, well, if you took a Babe Ruth and you put him out there today, like the fastballs are all go blowing past him. Well, maybe he would have adapted and trained at a higher level and he wouldn't have been chain smoking or eating cheeseburgers or whatever. And maybe he'd be a stud athlete still. You got to imagine you can only compare it to the time. It's very interesting that they want to pin it on Donald Trump because that's actually very effective and it's working. There's been little movement on Capitol Hill over the past 5 weeks as Republicans always lead with that, and Democrats blame each other for the stalemate. The Democrats are keeping up the demand for an extension of the Affordable Care Act and subsidies, while Trump and the Republicans say they will not negotiate or open the government in this way. Well, it kind of tells you what happened in New York. It kind of explains an election that we just saw where people are aghast, where Donald Trump threw his hat and his weight not behind the other guy who has a red hat, not the actual Republican who's running, who is, like a New York Republican. No, he threw his weight behind Andrew Cuomo because we don't have any principles. If you're not going to have any principles, but you are going to hold the hard line, you might as well just own the freaking shutdown. Nobody listens to what I have to say on that end, but I don't think I'm wrong. And they told you what they think. There is no problem too small that the government should not care about. Do you know how crazy? I mean, obviously the guy is an avowed socialist, so that makes sense. But do you know how crazy that sounds to those of us who don't want the government touching any of the problems?
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Yikes. There it is. I mean, that's explicit, and that's why I led the show with it. It's very clear where these people stand on this. How about some old lady who's not going to get she's not going to get the Atreyu and the Never Ending Story treatment from me just yet. I don't have an impression of this one. This is Zoe Lofgren. She's looking for Republicans. Why aren't they ready to shut it down? Like, let it go. Wouldn't it be amazing if we just stopped having this? I mean, honest to God, I know air travel is great. I'm going to show you some video that's pretty horrific when it goes wrong. But hey, what if we stopped flying so frequently? What if we just were using it for, cargo and stuff? People drove places. I don't hate it. I don't really have to go anywhere that far. Maybe, and again, I think most Americans probably fit into that. But when we do want to go somewhere, it is really nice to be able to fly off on a plane. So you got to ask yourself, that's a pretty small problem, occasionally wanting to go somewhere. Why do you need the government to do the slappy tickle game with you? Why don't we have our local airports handle that? Wouldn't you be willing to pay some sort of fee on your ticket out of whatever airport you're out of? If we took off a bunch of the federal fees and you just paid whatever the local is to be able to fund these fees, and it would be based on the amount of actual traffic that came out of your airport. Have you guys ever seen TSA just standing around where there's dozens of them? And have you ever seen when there's not enough of them? Shouldn't it be volume dependent instead of staffed by the federal government who doesn't care? That's just me.
Hey, Zoe Lofgren here. I'm back in D.C. Waiting for the Republicans to come back to work. This is the 29th day of this unnecessary government shutdown. And as I'm here in D.C., I haven't been able to find any Republicans here. Not only the House of Representatives, which has been out of session for over a month. The president's also missing in action. They need to get their act together. They need to come back to work. While they're out, who knows where, People are missing their paychecks. They're getting notices that their health care premiums are going through the roof. It's time for the Republicans. Come back to work. Let's get this job done.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
That's a really troubling statement. That lady thinks that healthcare, that the federal government should be the ones handling your healthcare and making sure that your premiums cost whatever they cost. I'm going to argue to you that if you are already weak and sick and you have these problems, then yeah, you should probably negotiate out a deal with somebody that's going to help you mitigate that. But should it be the federal government? I have no assistance from the federal government. I have no healthcare coverage, period, the end. If something happens, I'm going to go pay out of my pocket. So I got to make sure that I'm financially solvent. If something happens, the other day, one of my kiddos, ran into a door and something stabbed into her knee, and it was a real bummer. It's like a little puncture wound, and she was upset. So we cleaned it out, and we applied a bandage. That was it. That's what most of my kids need. My wife and I had a baby in the house we used to live in. Midwife and me. That was it. The only government we had that was involved in any way, shape, or form is when my kid decided to stop breathing, which, God bless her, they've all decided to do that at some point in time. She aspirated on something, probably amniotic fluid, and I had to go and resuscitate her, which was terrifying in some ways. But luckily, I've built my life so that I'm able to prepare for that. My baby stopped breathing. She was completely blue. She was 18 hours old, maybe 20 hours old. She might have been less than that. I think she was less than 18 hours old. And the only government that was involved was our fire department showed up with some blow-by oxygen, and I already had her breathing by the time they showed up. That's it. You can have a baby. You can raise your children. You can live your life eating decent foods, and you can PT and work out and injure yourself or not injure yourself. Right now, I'm dealing with injuries because I keep running because I'm dumb, and I weigh too much for a guy who runs like the way I want to. So I had to call Steve Friend up, our almond-eating buddy. And I said, Steve, what's the solution? My legs always hurt. I have pain in my calves. And he was like, you need to do myofascial releases and roll them out. You know what it cost me? $9. No government involved, it turns out. I'm going to solve my problem. I'm going to just punish my legs like they're at the Hanoi Hilton. I'm going to roll them out and I'm going to fix it. You know what's crazy? When I did need to lean on government, because I do remember my baby not breathing and being blue, if I had waited for the government to show up, she would be dead or brain dead. No question in my mind about it. They showed up about 4 minutes after I got her breathing again. So that's it. For me, it's proved to me over the last several years that there is no reason why I should be relying on a government to solve my problems. There's no problem too small for the government to care about. Yeah, every problem should be too small, with the exception of the ones that are only so big that there's nothing else we can do. Like our border, that's pretty big. That seems like a governmental problem. Like our military. Foreign invasion, if we had to call a military out to go do something. That sounds like a big problem. That's where I would sort of lean towards government. I don't need the government to be involved in like what my healthcare costs are. You got to be out of your mind. They can't do like I always tell this to people who are on the left, and this is a reasonable question. And if you have an answer, please, what are your favorite government programs? And are they being run at optimal levels in your experience? Like, try to call the IRS today. Well, we're in the middle of a shutdown. Call them when they're open. See how that goes for you. Seriously. And so half of Americans say the Trump administration is not committed to protecting American rights and freedoms. Do these people even know what the freedoms and the rights are? Do they? This is a poll. Comes from ABC. Trump's not committed to freedom of the press? Well, how do we have all these dissident press? I do it every single day. This is what I do for a living now. I do analysis and I do polls of all of the left-wing press. We go to ABC, NBC, CBS. Whether you like them or not, they lean left. I know that because I tell them favorable stories and they still slant it a little bit to the left. Not mad at them. That's just how they see the world. And then you got the MSNBCs and the New York Times and the CNNs. There's no freedom of the press. They can't criticize the president and he's not protecting that. What is happening to these people? Is he sending the IRS after them? Is he having the FBI go and knock down their doors and pull their phones? We've seen a crackdown on the freedom of the press. It just didn't happen under Donald Trump. So it's interesting to see that, what is that? 61% of the people polled, almost 2/3 of people think that Donald Trump is a problem for freedom of the press. Really? And freedom of speech, 57%. They just told us they had millions of people in the streets protesting against kings. How on earth does this poll make any sense? And again, this is the reason why I think when folks have bad and silly ideas, And they're allowed to have those ideas. Like, it's really important for America. When you have really dumb ideas that don't make sense, they should be in conflict with one another. The evidence in front of your eyes should actually debunk your own thoughts. This is why I enjoy talking to my father-in-law occasionally about these things, because he always does something like this. He'll be like, there's no freedom of the press. That's why we have to go out and we have to go out and protest. It's like, but if you can protest, is there really not freedom of press and assembly? I think there is. Free and fair election seems like a thing 56% of people think he's not committed to. I actually tend to agree with that. We kind of should jump on that. A fair criminal justice system. What does that have to do with the president of the United States? People. How many people are dealing with state and local prosecution compared to federal prosecution? I can tell you that the number of federal agents doing any of this stuff is so low. There's like 1 million sworn officers in this country of law enforcement, and less than 10%. Less than 10% of them are federal. So if you're mad about the criminal justice system, nebulously speaking, you're mad about your state. Why are you mad at the Trump administration? Oh, because you don't understand how things work. Protection and the freedom of religion. Notice less people care about that. And that fun? Only 49% are worried about the freedom of religion, because we're not a country that's serious about these kind of things. And lastly, 25% think that they're not committed to protecting our rights to own firearms, which might be one of the single biggest things. And this Trump administration has been C+ on it at best. So there's that. I just find these polls to be funny, because all they really reveal is not like what people think. It's just how illogically people think, to me. All right, I'm going to show you something horrific, and then we're going to do some Mamdani stuff. We're going to keep moving forward. This is actually like one of the craziest videos you'll probably ever see. The story goes is that there was a crash. Again, UPS, we're talking about aviation. We're talking about where the federal government comes into play. I don't know what the federal government's role would be in something like this, but I do know that this woman doesn't speak English in this video clip, and that does seem kind of interesting and problematic to people like me. Why is it that the first clip that I was able to find, I found somebody that was sitting in a truck. He spoke English. I found another guy who was in a truck. But of the 3 like clips that have commentary or someone taped with their own phone, this is the one that I decided, because if a third of the people that I could find, it's very unscientific, obviously. This is in where? Where is this crash happening, folks? It's in the Muhammad Ali Louisville Airport. This is in the middle of Kentucky. Take that for what it's worth.
¡Oh, my God!
Ay,
¡Corre
pinga.
para atrás, papi! ¿Viste? Te lo estoy diciendo, Dios mío.
Ay, pinga.
¡Ay, Dios mío!
Pero qué pinga.
Ay.
Vamos a ver.
Papi, cuidado.
Espérate.
¡Ay, Dios mío, señor!
Pinga, hacer. ¿Qué vas a hacer? Cojones.
Mira la cantidad de gente cogiendo candela, papi.
No, pinga.
For whatever it's worth, does anyone do like
Corre para atrás,
shock
papi.
and outrage better than Hispanic women? No, I don't think so. For my money, it's as good as it gets. But like, look at this. This is horrific. This is crazy and wild. But again, I cannot get over the fact that nobody in that car spoke English as their first language. Let me read a little bit here. I'm just going to leave this in the background. The video of it is insane. 7 people are dead after a UPS truck crashes. By the way, this was pinned on Trump. I saw this on social media. People are like, the first casualties of this government shutdown. Zero proof of that. This is a private business. UPS flight 2973 or 76 rather. 3 crew members aboard crashed 10:15 departing from the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. Federal Aviation Administration said 7 people are dead. They expect the number to rise. At least 11 others were injured. Jet fuel spread across a huge space. Super, super insane. Catastrophic crash is like almost an understatement, which you guys can see right there. The fireball went forever. And what I saw, which is crazy, and this could have to do with tired aviation professionals, the thing that blew my mind was this plane was running down the runway with an engine that was on fire. And one of the things that would normally happen in ATC is that you're visually giving clearance. You give clearance for the person to do the takeoff. But if you actually see smoke, fire, visible flames coming out of the engine, you'd imagine that they're going to go ahead and notify the pilot that happens. And if you're tired or if you're frustrated or you're phoning it in on the job, that's a possibility. I don't know why this pilot couldn't shut it down or didn't shut it down, and I'm sure we'll find out at some point in the near future. But truly catastrophic. It crashed into the buildings adjacent to the airport. There was a petroleum recycling business next door, auto parts business that was hit. It sounds really, really awful. And what's the saddest thing is that people immediately want to go and punch this out like this was the fault of the Trump administration. And I don't think that's fair. But again, it tells you just how people do not think logically, and they're immediately going to go to the biggest possible thing. You know, why are we doing that? Let me actually show you. I think I actually have a video here, and I may have to resize this thing, but let's see if I can show you the video of the engine on fire going down the line. Yeah, let's do this. Here we go.
Bro, get the fuck away from here. Like, turn around. Bro, no, hold on. I think it's gonna crash, bro. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy. Bro, get the fuck away from here. Like, turn around.
All right, so I looped it so you guys could see it. Sorry, I had to resize it on the fly. But you guys can see that it's running down the runway, and the engine was visibly on fire, and it looks like it still took off, went up a few feet in the air, maybe got 15 or 20 feet in the air, and then it ended up just belly flopping. Anyway, horrific, super sad. All of this stuff kind of tells me that people are going to immediately look for blame, when in the reality is you go, yeah, this is really sad. This is just a sad tragedy, and sometimes in our modern world, like, really bad things happen. They don't always have to be a thing where we just go, oh my, it must be this one person's fault. If you immediately, like I said, there was this song that I used to listen to when I was a kid, Bad Religion song called The Answer. If somebody just has the answer, and the answer is always, it's like Donald Trump's fault, or anybody else's fault for that matter. It's Greg Abbott's fault, or Kyle Serafin's fault. In the case of like making fun of the Kash Patel, that's my fault. But outside of that, people make mistakes. They make horrific mistakes. You know, good people die every day in really sad things. This polling tells me that we are not logical, rational human operators. What we are is emotional and oftentimes completely illogical actors in this world. We do it on feelings. And that's, I think, how you end up with these elections that go on, because that's what people do when they pull the lever. They don't actually know anything, and they can't see the consequences. Let's quickly break over to my buddies over at Patriot Coolers. Nothing to do with nothing, although they do ship using UPS. Patriot Coolers is the website. It's patriotcoolers.com. The promo code KYLE. Right now I have on the desk a 20 ounce. It's a gray one. It looks very nice. It matches the interior of my truck and the interior of my wife's minivan, because we're gray type people. If you guys want one of their fantastic cooler products, they're vacuum sealed tumblers that keep ice for days. Same as their rotomolded, hard coolers. They make soft coolers. They make backpacks. They make all kinds of good gear. Again, more and more gear. I always have one on the desk. It's hard to get as excited about it because I have fielded this thing every single day for literally years now. Whenever I travel, it always comes with me. PatriotCoolers.com is the website again. Link in the show description if you want one that's engraved or looks like the one we have on the wall behind me. Flag, suspendable stuff. Use promo code Kyle, 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 KYLE. 10% off whenever you use my name. If you spend $50, then you'll get free shipping. Good Christmas gifts for people that have everything. You can always update them. They look really nice. By the way, I'll just go broader shot right here. That's the packaging. It's got an American flag on one side. It'll have like a look of like whatever it is you ordered. It's very, very nicely put out there. So it makes great gifts as we start moving into that season. And, nobody's ever mad about getting like a cool new coffee mug. It's nice to have something to be excited about when you go to work. If your day is dreary and then you're like, oh, well, I got this new thing and this shows that somebody loves me. That's kind of nice too. All right, let's talk about who loves who. Government loved by these people. Predictable results. Polls closed at 9 p.m. The New York mayoral race. I've got clips. Now, yesterday, I told you the thing about the red hat problem, which is that this issue and the loss or the win, let's call it, of Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani, this socialist dude. This loss was so predictable because it happened all the way upstream. It happened when Republicans didn't send the person that they thought could actually win, and you ended up with Curtis Sliwa, who they think could not win. And then you got no support from the party. And then you're in New York, which means that your Republicans are already going to have kind of an uphill battle. And I remember some guy used to say this all the time. It's not bad enough yet. Well, I'll tell you what, you elected a guy where it might get bad enough pretty soon. This was an absolute domination by the political left in multiple different election cycles. So New York mayoral race, the New Jersey gubernatorial race, the Virginia gubernatorial race, the attorney general race there, the lieutenant governor, all of this stuff went blue, which, by the way, is what happened in 2017. That's not actually surprising. This is a backlash, whether you like it or not. It's a backlash against Donald Trump because they've been demonizing this guy for a long time. But I will point out to this, that if you took the combined totals of Eric Adams, who dropped off but still got votes, he got 6,300 something votes, maybe 7,000 votes. You took Curtis Sliwa, 146,000 votes and change. You took Andrew Cuomo's votes, which was 855,000 votes. If you added all of them up together, you'd still be more than 30,000 shy of what Mamdani has on this screen. And I know it's going to end up being about that at the end. So everybody got their butt kicked by this guy. And it's predictable. And I also think it's probably time to build that wall that Donald Trump was talking about. But maybe we just wall in New York. We had a really great movie about this with Snake Plissken. We had a movie called Escape from New York. Some of you guys are going to go back and watch the John Carpenter stuff. They were funny dystopian images of what would happen if you walled off New York and let it just go to itself. We may be getting there sooner than not. It's always funny when fiction ends up becoming sort of like a quasi-reality. I think it'll be a lot uglier and less fun, and there probably won't be Kurt Russell going in to save the day with an eye patch. Here's the man speaking at his own victory rally that happened last night.
The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power. And yet, over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something great.
Was it just me, or is it weird when somebody who doesn't have calluses on his hand, who hasn't done hard work, who's never done anything physical in his life, who did some like mediocre rap and his parents were academics, who came here and has been a citizen for 7 years, is out there talking about the toil of the working class and citing Eugene Debs and getting a big cheer? Is that weird to anybody else? How dumb are these people? Like, do they not know that this guy also doesn't represent anything that he's talking about? Like, maybe it's just me, but I'd be like, okay, dude, this is the same thing that I did when I went to the FBI, by the way. Maybe it's just life experience. Maybe it's just because I'm a contrarian. But when people tell me something, I want to know what's your experience with that. Under what authority are you giving me this information? Under what experience are you citing that I should listen to what you have to say? How many fingers have you had bruised from carrying boxes? By the way, is that a real thing? I've carried a lot of boxes in my life. A lot. I've moved more times than almost anybody that I know. I've never had my hands bruised from boxes. I've had paper cuts on them. You know, I've had some knuckles scrape up. I don't remember getting my hands bruised. So he's talking, and it sounds great. Bruised from boxes. That's alliteration for those of you that are listening for the literary device that's in there. That's when you repeat the first consonant sound. It sounds good. And it flows nicely. And you cited Eugene Debs, who was the chairman, the founder of the Socialist Party of America. So he's like a folk hero for a bunch of commies from 100 years ago. What has this man done that is anything like what he's talking about? Has he ever worked a line as a line cook? Here's the crazy thing about where I live in the world and where I come from. I started waiting tables and working in like an ice cream parlor when I was 15 years old. I was waiting tables by the time I was 16 and 17. I've worked and sweat my ass off and been yelled at by customers for things that were not my fault, and it makes you a better person. At the end of the day, you're making money based on their experience, so you learn that other people's experience matters. It's called service industry for a reason. Your job is to serve. It does seem to be the thing that's lacking from Americans these days. When I go into restaurants, nobody realizes that their job is my happiness, which means you have to step outside of yourself. Does that guy know anything about that? Has he ever stood behind the line? Has he ever been in expo and just been like sweating heat off the grill like for hours on end while people are screaming at you from the kitchen about what they don't have? People are screaming at you from the front of the house. Has he had that experience? How many ditches has that man dug? I once carried the entire dirt that was pulled out when my friend excavated a pool by myself with a wheelbarrow and a piece of shit old Toyota truck that I borrowed from a friend. I manually picked up the entirety of a pool in Oklahoma and took it to a waste dump in about 8 pickup loads. We worked it out. It was something like 5 tons of dirt that I personally carried myself in a day. I was sick as a dog the next day afterwards. How many people has like this guy gone out there and helped with his hands? Has he put on the gloves and done compressions on and sweat on them as they died or came back to life or whatever? Or wiped the asses of old ladies who were incontinent and in their last moments on earth? Like, what has that man done ever? That's my question. And what's funny is a bunch of pussies in New York City, excuse my language, who have never done anything hard, whose hardest thing is that they work at a job where they stand around and they think the purpose of their job is them getting paid. They think they're entitled to like a bunch of happiness and that they should just get it because that's what the world owes them. I saw this clip and it is so indicative of the broader problem that exists in these places. And I saw it in Virginia, and I saw it in Washington, D.C., and I've seen it in Philadelphia, and I've seen it when I went through New Jersey. And of course, I spent time in Connecticut, and I spent time all up and down that area. And I despise everything in that area. I despise it not because the people are horrible, but because you have a bunch of folks that are disconnected. And the hardworking people are not represented by these grifty clowns that get out there and talk a really good game. And how many of them can say that their hands are scarred, their knuckles have cuts in them that have healed? Like, how many of these people have done anything hard in their life? I've heat stroked out on a military base, and I've just about heat stroke out digging ditches in my own backyard. Like, I've done some things that are hard, and there are many people that have done a lot harder things. I've sat up all night on a freaking pole barn where it was 20 degrees and the wind chill was like down near zero because my friend was getting his cattle killed by a bunch of coyotes, and we sat there for 12 hours and shot coyotes in the dark, drinking coffee and freezing our asses off. You know, it's just stuff you do. That's just what men do. Is Mamdani a man in that sense? Are any of these people that we see that are leading us like men in that sense? Hard men who are willing to put it on the line? No, they're not. So that's what I'm going to show you this clip, which is really kind of amazing. This comes from Nick Friedman. He does a really good job of these street interviews. He's a little kid in New York. He's also not hard, but he's asking good questions. Good for him. And here's what I want you to recognize about this discussion. This is a street discussion, and it's very, very insightful. One, it's polite, and I'm for that. Good for them. Two, the man who's standing there reminds me of the guy from The Hangover, the brother who never launched, who's in his 40s. I can't think of what his name is. Zach Galifianakis. He looks like Zach Galifianakis. If you're listening and you're not on Spotify, which, hey, let's just do that. Let's do a Spotify ad real quick. If you're listening and you're not on Spotify, you should have Spotify so you could flip over and see this person. Rumble, X, YouTube, yes. Spotify is KyleSerafinshow.com. You may hear a Spotify ad right now. Okay. This guy, this Zach Galifianakis looking character, which nothing against his looks. All I know is he's soft. I can tell by looking at him, you can tell by looking at him that he's weak. He's not like a masculine equivalent. And he's complaining about how he has 2 jobs and he's in his 20s and he doesn't remember a time when it was great in the 90s or the 80s. It's like, welcome to the world, bro. Sometimes life is hard. Oh, okay. That's it. He's complaining about foreign wars. I want you to tune into this. He's complaining about foreign wars that were fought by not him. How many friends does he have who lost a limb? Any? How many friends has he celebrated who died for this country? Any? Does he know a single person who sacrificed their life for our nation for whatever reason? Does he know anybody who's been shot in the line of duty? Does he know anybody who's broken their kneecap trying to bring a felon into custody? I'm speaking about real concrete examples. Does he have any of those? And he's going to cite victimhood based on foreign wars from his childhood that he did not participate in. In the meantime, the woman who is straightening him out, I want you to also notice, 1, it's a woman who's engaging with him. 2, she has a freaking child and she is holding a baby. She is doing something. That baby looks like she's probably maybe like 4 years old, 3 or 4. She's holding onto a child in this clip. And she's talking in a measured tone because she's used to doing things that are really hard, raising children, and she's not complaining. So the white lady carrying a baby and procreating and doing something that's probably really hard to do in New York City, which is have a child and raise a child, is talking to this clown show, this poor little boy who has a beard, which means he's a man, but he doesn't know how to act like one. And he's crying about victimhood that he can't even claim. That's the setup. I've given you a lot of my perspective on this, but then you listen to it. You tell me I'm wrong. You drop in the comments after you listen.
We've seen the failings of the system. I don't have a positive 80s Reagan era, positive 90s Clinton era to look back on. All I've seen since I was born is war, death, destruction overseas, and an increasing wealth gap here at home.
I don't know why, and no offense, I don't know why the youth are so sad and so upset. You came to New York with a dream. You worked for Lincoln Center, which is one of the most incredible organizations in the world. You have rent-stabilized housing. You're safe. You came to New York with a dream. I get it. Everybody.
The dream didn't involve living paycheck to paycheck on 2 jobs.
But that's everywhere. We should all, please God, make tons of money and live well. But not everybody's entitled to what they think they are.
I believe everyone's entitled to a dignified life.
Exactly. And so what is
And I think Zoran will provide a dignified life for more New Yorkers. That's at the end of the day.
Dignified is when, you're entitled to safety. You're entitled, people here. There's so many incredible services that are currently offered.
Yeah.
And I just feel like the bleakness of the youth is just it's oversold. Look at the positive. There's so many great things
There's
that
a lot
are
of great
offered.
things here, but there can
There's
be a lot.
such a good life.
Things can be better.
New York already spends more per capita on public services, on welfare, on education than any other city in the United States. There's no more money to keep paying that, and if the people who pay the taxes are not believe they're going to be safe, they're going to leave, and the city will get worse. We've seen this in many other cities around the world. And so you can't have, unless you believe in pure socialism, which has failed everywhere that it's been implemented. Pure socialism means former Soviet Union or Cuba, where you have free supermarkets but the shelves are empty, and that is not going to make anybody happy.
Yeah. But I don't think Zoran has proposed anything.
He has.
Well, there's the government.
He
The government-run grocery store is one in each borough.
Well,
not to put the private
and you
sector
think
out
those
of
are
business.
going to work well?
We'll see. It's a proposal. It's a
It hasn't
pilot
worked in
program.
Minneapolis.
It's a pilot program.
Yeah.
Minneapolis is a different city than
Let's
here.
all agree that we hope for the best.
Yes.
Okay.
Hope for a New York everyone can live in and be happy.
We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
They dominated with that message. And that little boy who's masquerading as an adult male, he can't even admit. Do you notice the only people that are pushing back against him? There's 2 people. One is a man who's standing there with a daughter. The other is a woman who's standing there with a daughter. It's almost like that people become grown-ups when they have kids. That's not to go out there and smash on people who do not have kids. There are plenty of you that have acted like grown-ups. You've served our nation. I have nothing to say about that. But let me just say that broadly speaking, if we were to generalize, it is a universal experience among human beings that most of us get our shit together when we have to look out for another life. That's just how it works. It starts sometimes with marriage. It oftentimes really gets started with kids. When you have kids, when you are responsible for a small person in the world, your life becomes forfeit to their future. In a lot of ways, that is a discriminating thing. I can break my life apart from the time that I was married. I don't remember the time before it, and it was dumb. A lot of the things I did, dumb. A lot of my attitudes, my ideas, dumb, not developed, not matured. I watched my friend who was 20 years old. His fiance was pregnant. They had kind of a shotgun marriage. They were planning on getting married anyway, but they had they announced their pregnancy a little bit early. Snuck in before the ceremony happens, the nuptials. They had to get on a rush schedule. He was 20 years old. He dropped out of college. He worked his ass off. He was one of my heroes. I was like, this man knows what's up. I still am a moron. I'm 25. My friend has a 5-year-old. He dropped out of college. He took care of his family. He went to work every single day. He built up a career. He went back to night school. He got his degree. He lost a full academic scholarship because he was a grown-up. He was a man with responsibilities. And I looked at that at 20, and I'm still trying to figure that out at 30. There's a big gap there. My friend has a 10-year, maybe 12-year head start on me because my first baby didn't come until I was 35. I had a 15-year gap between children. And his kids are already out and they're in college. He's ready to do, he's an empty nester and he's 43. He's my age. He only had 2. It's not blaming people who didn't, but there is a big distinction and it is really important for young men. That guy's out there crying. What has he done to better his situation? And does he even have any concept of what's going on? He wants free programs, handouts, and a government-run grocery store. That is an absolute dipshitted position to hold because it's never been successful. And he admitted it. Well, Minneapolis is not the same as New York. Real communism's never been tried. Democrats dominated with that. How is it? It's because people are stupid. And they don't make rational, logical decisions based on the actual evidence out there. They go on emotions and feelings, including men who like to think that they're rational. I will tell you this, though. There's a lot more like white ladies that went out there and voted for Zoran Mamdani. And if they weren't voting in New York, it would have been a real different ballgame. Just saying. If it was married men and single men and it was just like dads against that guy, I think he doesn't have a chance. I want to read you this article from Politico because it actually is pretty wild. And it also gives you some perspective, as you should have. Democrats didn't just rebound, they dominated. It's a foreshadowing of what we're going to see next year, said one strategist. That's probably true. The midterms are probably going to be ridiculous. And then, because they only had a short time clock, and we've been talking about it since the election, there was a short fuse. Trump will be impeached again. There will be nothing but obstructionism again. And we'll have 2 years of shenanigans where minor things will get accomplished. This was the period which they could get something done. They've got a few months of it left. And they're squandering it with stupid people in charge of the thing that's going to end up getting us killed. Just remember, food riots, that's a bummer, right? Bad government policy and like looking into the First Amendment and doing things that are, censorship, that sucks. Kicking down your door with a SWAT team in the morning to go out there and find the people that said the bad things, that's what's lethal. And we haven't fixed that problem. I'm going to cover that at the end here, so we're going to keep going. For Democrats, Tuesday night felt like 2017 all over again. Across the country, Democrats won big. From marquee races to down ballot contests, the counties shifted. 1 year ago, they veered right back onto the left, away from the right. The suburbs that powered the Democrats' massive wins in the first Trump administration came roaring back. Exit polls even showed that Democrats improved their margins with non-college educated voters. The strength of these wins hit at Democrat appetites to take on Trump as he ends his first year in office, and the voters are concerned about cost of living. That has not been solved. Inflation has not been solved. The costs have not gone down. They continue to be inflated. They continue to go up. It is more expensive to buy most things in a grocery store today than it was when Trump was elected. That doesn't mean it's Donald Trump's fault. That's also illogical and stupid. But he did campaign on that, and people are going to go and do a referendum. So maybe free food is the answer if you don't understand anything about finance. And this guy went out and ran a populist type message, and he ran out and pushed things that made people feel good. It may be dumb, but it felt good for some. And it's going to lead to a massive splintering in this country because a lot of people are doomsaying right now. I'm going to play you Brett Weinstein's prediction from 2019 because the other side of this is ugly. And it looks like not just like cultural crusade, it looks like actual crusade. Just saying. Anybody who's not tucked in with a helmet ready to go with night vision, now's your time. You got a small window. Make good decisions and invest in good technology that's going to be able to carry you through dark hours. Here's Mamdani saying more stuff.
I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties.
Why are you naming ethnicities? Are we not in America? Is it not America that we are supposed to be talking about? Weren't you meant to be a representative for New Yorkers? It's supposed to be the biggest melting pot, the Big Apple. Everybody comes here. You got the freaking Statue of Liberty. No. You want to divide. You want to make sure people remember where they came from and all that stuff. That's not assimilation. That's not America. Everybody came here that didn't assimilate used to face significant pushback. Oh, you're Irish and you only want to be Irish and you only want to live around Irish people? You're going to get the crap kicked out of you by this country. You want to become a part of the country? Go do something. Go out and put the railroads in and die trying. And guess what? Nobody looks at Irish people, Irish descent, red hair, and they go like, you're not American. They just like, you're American. Yeah, because you speak the way that I do. Because you have the same cultural values the way that I do. What the hell was he just talking about? And of course, it's on purpose. We know that. We know it because we've watched it for the last couple years. Did we fix this problem? Did we go out there and do the mass deportations we talk about? Did we revoke parole? Did we pull back the refugee status, the TPS? Did they do all this stuff, ignore the judges and just do it? No, they did not. And they did have a chance to do it. And it probably would have been the end of like what everyone, it would have been catastrophic meltdowns on the left. But you might have saved this country. But I don't think we voted our way out of this, people. Stephen Miller is telling you the craziest part of all of this. I'm going to play this clip from him. I think he was talking on Hannity, which is not my favorite. The craziest part about all this is, just like what they did in Arctic Frost at the FBI, just like what they did at DHS, bringing in illegal aliens through TPS, the temporary protected status, through the parolee program where we had quote unquote refugees and so on and so forth. All of these things were, ready for this? Strictly speaking, legal. They were legal. That's what you forget to say. Was it criminal in like their intent, in their heart? Would we look at them and say, oh, these are really problematic and damaging and destructive to our nation? For sure. But by the letter of the law, they played the game as it's played. And the best part of it is, our Congress, who's bitching about it and complaining about it and acting like they have a funding emergency right now and they're doing the theater, they all signed off on the budgets every damn time. No one can pass a budget without the other side showing up. And every time enough of the other side shows up, and it doesn't matter whether it's a Lindsey Graham or a Ted Cruz or whoever your favorite is, a Tom Massey or not a Tom Massey, it doesn't matter who shows up. Oh, Murkowski, she's a rhino. It's like, you know what? They all just take turns wearing the hat of the person who goes in and is the sides with the other team. And I told you guys this the other day, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. Remember that the person that goes in and crosses the aisle and votes with the other side, they say, I'm bipartisan. I'm willing to get things done. I'm willing to go and compromise in Washington, D.C. to make sure that you get what you want. And then the other half is when they stand and they say, I'm fighting for you, and I won't side with the evildoers, and I won't do the thing. The problem is that there's this like negotiation that goes on, who's gonna roll over and who's not. And the only person who has to suffer and get paid, get destroyed is us, as the people watching. So as long as you see that, you know the answer is not federal. That's what I'm getting to. The answer is going to be local. Did you guys vote in your local elections? How many of you didn't vote yesterday? I made my wife go out and vote. She's like, I thought I wasn't supposed to vote. We don't believe in women voting. I'm like, whatever. Until the rules change, go vote. Here's what I think the answers are. Go knock yourself out. And we talked about it. We did a bunch of constitutional amendments in Texas. That's what we voted on. We don't even live in a city, so I don't even have a city council to vote on. Here's Stephen Miller telling you what they did was legal. It was authorized. They can act like they're outraged all they want, but they were allowed to do it.
It's it for your audience perfectly, Sean. This was not a loophole. The Biden administration, Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, devised a scheme to fly illegal aliens into the country and then to escort them en masse across the border by the millions and to give them something known as parole, which gives them a work permit, which gives them a social security number, which gives them access to the voting booth. This was the plan all along, to get them here illegally so they can get free government benefits, get hooked to welfare, and be able to participate in American elections. This was an attack on democracy by the Democrat Party. It's the same attack that we see, Sean, when you have California, a sanctuary state, that is refusing to turn over even illegal alien criminals and gang members to ICE. So these are illegal aliens in California who have been arrested by California police, by California law enforcement for serious crimes, for crimes against children, for felonies, for crimes that threaten public safety, and they are refusing to hand these criminal illegal aliens over to ICE. Instead, they're freeing them back into the cities to offend and offend again. By any definition, what California is doing is criminal. It is a violation of our laws. It is one of the most heinous things that I have seen in my entire...
Okay. So who's going to jail? What criminal case have you put together? Who's got handcuffs on? And who is going to be indicted in a federal grand jury? Who's going to face consequences in front of a federal judge? Who is going to go to jail and then prison? What's that sentence going to look like? What's the charge? I would like Stephen Miller to speak very specifically about what laws are violated. He was getting pretty good about that in the beginning. I saw him do it. And he has the ability to say that. So go out there and tell me what law was violated specifically, and then go out there and have your person who's supposed to be running this solution go execute the solution. Or we could just do more theater. Let me give you 7 takeaways from the New York Times. 7 takeaways from the New York Times because Mamdani is symptomatic of the bigger problem. Here we go. He's 34 years old. He was a state lawmaker, and he was just elected as the 111th mayor of New York City, riding a historic wave of enthusiasm. This is coming from, again, the New York Times. They called the race just 35 minutes after the polls closed. It was a blowout. It wasn't even close. First of all, point number 1. Mamdani got more votes than anybody has since the 1960s. Even in an era of low nationwide turnout, participation in Tuesday's mayoral election was nothing short of electric. People were amped up about it. he tapped into that. More than 2 million people cast their ballots. That's a lot. Okay, he built his own Democratic coalition. He found a bunch of people, white liberals in Manhattan and Brooklyn, black and Latino voters, ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities, no idea what's going on there, smattering of immigrant communities. He went out there and he built a coalition of people, and they went out and they voted for him. He was running up margins 40 and 50 points in Brooklyn's most affluent neighborhoods. Rich people voted him because rich people, apparently in New York, are not actually that rich. They're affluent neighborhoods, but these people are voting against their own. Like, how are they going to survive? They're going to get taxed out of their asses. But what do they know? I guess it's not bad enough yet. They're voting on virtue. Cuomo squeezed a Republican rival, but not enough. And guess what? The Republican establishment, including Donald Trump, the president, actually sided with him, and they tried to help him. The Democrat, the one that we were saying was a murderer, and people were claiming killed off the old folks that were in New York State when he was the governor. The guy who had to step down because of his sexual improprieties. That guy. That's who you went and backed. Doesn't mean that Sliwa's like much better at his life that way, but just saying. Okay, despite spending $40 million, super PACs could not pull Cuomo to victory. Billionaires like Bill Ackman, the mayor, Bloomberg, pumped millions of dollars into super PACs that were supposed to support Cuomo, but it ended up being for naught. Mamdani called it naked bigotry and Islamophobia because those things still work on people in New York. They don't work on me. They probably don't work on you. You can call me a bigot or a racist, and I'll just say, that's fine. Think what you like. The evidence doesn't actually prove that. I don't believe that there is such a thing as Islamophobia. What I do is recognize that certain ideologies and some religions are not compatible with the rest of us, and I can see patterns. So I do. But sure, it works in New York. Mamdani made progress with working class blacks and Latino neighborhoods. Why? Because he went out there and he talked about victimization, and everything is everybody else's fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that you're working hard and you're not successful, even though you're dumb enough to live in the most expensive place in freaking America. That's you. You can live cheaper places. You can make your money go a lot farther. You can make less money by a lot less in a lot of places across this country and still live at a much higher standard of living than you would in New York City. I would be impoverished if I lived in New York City, but I don't. I live in the suburbs outside of Austin, Texas, and it's much more affordable here, and it's not even that affordable compared to many places in this country. It's a simple fact. There are places that are super expensive and people want to be there. If you want to go where it's less crowded, it will be less expensive. You chose to live in New York City. You chose to pursue the dream of being a useless actor. And also you're really sad that you have to take tickets at the door for the shows that somebody else is selling out. It's your choice. Nobody ever wants to own their own agency. You are responsible for your own success or not. That's what America's about. This is not a bootstraps message. This is about be a grown-up. Stop complaining about wars that you didn't fight in. Like that poor man with the soft beard and the hands that have never done any hard work. How do you know that, Kyle? I'm just guessing. Andrew Cuomo reached his expiration date. That's what they learned. Yeah, he's 67 years old. He already already expired because he was removed from his own office when he was the governor of New York. How the hell did they think he was going to run for mayor and win? That seemed really dumb to me too. The rich could not make up their mind. People from the haves and the have-nots could not side on one side or the other. Cuomo is a rich guy. Didn't work. That's their claim. That's what they say. Okay? Here's the funny thing. He told you what you needed to know. And what the funny thing is for me is that he was saying the same thing, and I heard it loud and clear, and many of you guys knew it, and all these people were going, oh my God, he's going to be a communist, and he's going to go hard to the left. He's already like the hardest leftist person ever to run for mayor of New York. And apparently CNN didn't take him at his word. They thought he was like soft, and he was like a TikTok guy. Here's Van Jones. How do you get paid to be an analyst if this is what you came up with?
I think he missed an opportunity. I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech. And I think that Mamdani is the one you need to hear from tonight. There are a lot of people trying to figure out, can I get on this train with him or not? Is he going to include me? Is he going to be more of a class warrior, even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent. I think his tone was sharp. I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So I felt like there's a little bit of a character switch here, where the warm, open, embracing guy that's close to working people was not on stage tonight, and there was some other voice on stage. That said, he's very young, And he just pulled off something that's very, very difficult. And I wouldn't write him off, but I think he missed an opportunity to open himself up tonight. And I think that will probably cost him going forward.
I'm gonna teach Van Jones something, since apparently he doesn't know this. You can vote your way into communism and socialism, but you have to shoot your way out of it. The guy does not care. There's enough people in New York City that are going to support this if you promise them free everything that they will do there. They'll be like, my life sucks now. It's not incrementally better, but he's promising better. I'll go for the person that promises better rather than the person that says it's your fault. Do better yourself. That's not a good message. It turns out that's the message of most of Western culture. Go out there through your works and your character and take your suffering and offer it up and keep doing it and assign meaning to it because it's permanent. It's the condition of humanity that you will suffer. So go out there and make it mean something. Go out and have kids, go raise something, go build something in the world, make a mark. Oh, or you can get free buses and free lunch. That sounds nice. Pizza parties for all. Ice cream social. It's a social, right? Like how did he not see that? How does Van Jones, who gets paid by CNN, like I get it, like they're playing a role. These people are cartoons, but how did he not know that? Because everybody should know that. Like he told us who he was. Oh, he was so much nicer before. And then he pivoted on election night. He should have gone out there. He doesn't need a coalition. He just got elected. His coalition is I'm now the mayor of New York City. See what happens next. It'll be really exciting and fun. I think he's also going to find out that the executive office in even a big city like that is not nearly as powerful as he thinks it is. But it's not going to be good. And we can watch from the outside. And the best part of it is, as I told you when I started, I don't live in New York, and many of you don't live in New York, so it doesn't matter to us. We don't care. We don't have a big audience in New York. Shocker. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect me here in Texas. It doesn't affect you in Kansas City. It doesn't affect you in North Dakota, where you're just a regular person. But if you were to take your household goods the same as me, I just saw this in our chat. If I move to New York City, I have 150 felonies. I probably have more than that. I have a box of 150 magazines that are felonies. Boop. I won't go there. I only go where it's America. If you're living in a place and you're like, hey, Seraphin, I'd like to have the freedoms that you have, but I live in Washington State, or I live in California, or I live in New York, or I live in... Yeah, dude, you made that choice. Do not steal agency from yourself. It's the reason why we had the interview the other day with Marty Combs. You can just do things. One of those things is, I like to think of my family kind of like Little House on the Prairie. I don't know, and this is not like preaching to anybody, but just seriously. I empathize with the position of the Little House on the Prairie family, with the Wilders, because what did they do? When things were hard, they packed up and went somewhere better, and they scratched a living out of nothing. And then they did it again, and then they did it again. And God love them, they did it again. They tried to survive whatever it took so that they could stay alive because of their children. And then their daughter became one of the most famous authors in the history of America. Because of her hardship, because of her stories, because it's a traditional, classic American struggle. And she sugarcoated it. It was way harder, the Wilder story, than what you read. Way harder and uglier and nastier. A lot harder than anything Mamdani's ever gone through in his life. So do things. Make that move if you got to. All right, so at least the good news is that the other side, quote unquote, our side, like the Republicans, they're fighting back like an intelligent force that is meant to go and steer the ship and right it, correct? You know, the good ones, like Ron Johnson. They're doing a good job, right? I think so.
And so I am calling on, and I appreciate all the members of the Judiciary Committee, we need to get to the bottom of this. We need to do everything we can to assist Director Patel and AG Bondi in making sure that they have the staff to take control over these agencies. They're the heads of them. I don't think they have the control. I think they're being sabotaged within. But the American people need to understand exactly what happened. And again, I'm calling on members of the Judiciary Committee to help Senator Grassley and myself get to the bottom of this so we can expose this, so this doesn't happen again in America. This has to end.
They are going to fund the FBI at the full level that the FBI needs for funding, and it's going to continue to do exactly what it is, because these unserious clowns that continue to represent us, and Senator Johnson falls in the same category as all the rest of them. If you vote to fund an agency that spied on you, that you say spied on you, and they still legally have the ability to do that, then you should not be surprised when the result, this is the same thing as voting into freaking socialism. What do you think the result is going to be? What do you think happens when you give them the money and the agency? He just said the exact opposite of what Patel has been saying. Like, we've taken over, we have full leadership, we're in control. Patriots run it now. Blah, 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 blah. We've rooted out all the bad actors. By the way, here's this story. This comes from this last couple days, and I've been getting unlimited pings from journalists going like, hey, do you know what the hell is going on? I go, no, and no one else does either, including Kash Patel. The FBI fires, unfires, then refires agents linked to the Jack Smith probe. Guys, this story is hysterical. It's written by Ryan Riley, Michael Costner, Zoe Richards. At least 2 FBI agents who've been involved in past investigations into Donald Trump were told Monday that they'd been fired, only to learn later that day that those terminations had been reversed or put on hold, according to 6 people familiar with the decisions. And then on Tuesday morning, the 2 agents learned that they had indeed been fired and they were refired. And the story goes is that Kash Patel went in after the plane scenario that I've been pointing out and what a doofus he is, and he decided to actually watch. I'm speculating a little bit. But for those of you that are in the 7th floor that are watching this, I think I know what you guys did. I think I know that you were trolled by our Thursday show. I know that some of you were, and you watched it. And I'm sorry that caught you off guard, but it was funny for me. So just so you know, I thought it was really funny. The audience thought it was really funny that you were watching. And when I did the big reveal of who my 7th floor source was, it's Kash Patel's public social media. That's really funny, whether you like it or not. If you guys had a sense of humor, you'd know it's funny. But what you also happened to do, because you were watching the show, is you realize that the Arctic Frost documents that I went over for about 10 or 12 minutes has all these redacted names, and all those redacted people still work for the FBI. So then you guys went out there and started firing those people. And you fired the SAC out in San Antonio because his name was on the list, and it was exposed by Heritage Foundation, the Oversight Project. And you fired some of the other guys, like David Geist. Yeah, we know. That's why I said their names, so that you could know that I know that you don't know what the hell you're doing. You people are flying blind. When this meme keeps popping up, it's because you idiots should realize that this guy is a failure. He can't do the job. And he could have, by the way, if you wanted to hire me on remotely as a special governmental employee. My rate is really, really high because I don't like the government. But yeah, you could pay me to help you out, and I would have. I would have done it for almost nothing back then. But you ghosted me and the other guys. You didn't bring on Steve Friend when he needed a job. You didn't hire him to help out Dan Bongino, find out who the bad actors were, who could help you understand what it is that's going on in the agency that you think that you're running. They're running you. You're dumb, and you keep making these missteps. So you get headlines like fires, unfires, and refires agents. Do you know how stupid you look when you do that? And do you know what that does to the FBI personnel who actually want to support you? I found this out the other day. The FBI Agents Association has now found themselves on the wrong side of Kash Patel, and they do not support the man. So the most important job in the FBI and the people who are representing that group, they are now anti-Kash Patel. Every agent is. Do you know who doesn't have a problem with Kash Patel today? Who knows that they're safe? The intel analysts, the analytical personnel, the exact people that he called out on the Sean Ryan show as being the problem, the intel component that he was going to break out and send them away. And he didn't do it because he's dumb. Or he's compromised. I don't know what his problem is, but this is really, really foolish because you can't say something and then me be able to go on my podcast and do Patel versus Patel, where Patel, the old Patel, wins hands down because he said the right answer and he knew what the answer was. You've lost support from guys like Sean Ryan. You've lost support from the people that you've gone out there and spoken to and you lied to. Bubba, I mean that in a really nice way. Patel, you blew it. It's time to walk away. Take your millions from China. Take whatever else is you got. Take your freaking challenge coins with the dildos on them and just get out because you're going to be done. And you're going to be unhireable for any other reason. No one's going to look at you and be like, yeah. And then the next thing is you're going to be in depositions for the next 5 years or longer from all of these unlawful terminations you did because you did them wrong because you didn't ask people who understood how the FBI works and how federal employment works. You'd think a guy who was around government as long as you did would understand that, but you don't because you're kind of a dummy. And like, it's really embarrassing because I actually supported you for a while, as you guys know. The names of these people that were all tied to the special counsel, what happened apparently was they were fired because they were part of Arctic Frost. They were unfired because Janine Pirro, who's the United States attorney in the District of DC, went like, hey, these guys are working on important stuff for me. Can you please unfire them? And so the people around were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, we'll unfire them. And then he landed in Japan, as I told you yesterday, night before last rather. He got down in Japan, got the update and was like, no, they are actually fired, fire them again. The FBI Agents Association, which is run by basically Marxists, they are pro-government forces who love everything leftism. That's not an exaggeration. I've broken ways with them long before I ever became a public figure, the FBI Agents Association went out and criticized. They said the actions yesterday in which the special agents of the FBI were terminated, then reinstated shortly after, only then to be fired again today, highlights the chaos that occurs when long-standing policies and processes are ignored. An agent simply assigned to an investigation and conducting it appropriately within the law should never be grounds for termination. Kind of. Except they probably shouldn't have done some of these things because they were obviously political. But here's the real problem. They were well documented. They were clearly lawful. And as I pointed out, Stephen Miller is saying that it wasn't a loophole. It was by design. The things they did were legal, which means the agency itself needs reform. And you're not doing it. You're not cutting it, buddy. I'm going to tell you what they did the other day. So this is a little bit longer. We're going to do a little bit of a breakdown of a court document here. This is the criminal complaint. I told you I would share this with you yesterday, so here we go. Actually, let's do a quick Spotify ad. Spotify can be found at KyleSerafinshow.com. If you're listening on audio only, you may hear an ad from them right now. You can also support us over on Locals. Had some of you join that. Very cool. I appreciate it. Free or paid member, KyleSerafin.com. That's where our little community gathers and has discussions. Let's talk about this. Criminal complaint. Criminal complaint is something that is done in exigent circumstances when you are in federal law enforcement. What happens is they say, we don't have time to go to a grand jury, which is very uncommon for the federal law enforcement end. We're talking about not cops, not reactive, like you were drunk driving and we saw you driving drunk, so we arrested you. And then we go out there afterwards and we either indict you or we file a criminal complaint. No, we're talking about people who we've been looking at for a long time, have an open case on, been gathering information, have been doing analysis, have been doing phone records and subpoenas, who have been doing interviews with the people around you. And then we know when it's time to take you down, we do a grand jury indictment, and then we come and arrest you. That's what the FBI does. Criminal complaint is something they did with J6ers. They did it with J6ers because it automatically gives you a quick arrest warrant, and there's no such thing as a summons. The criminal complaint goes to a magistrate judge. You swear that the facts that are in the affidavit are true and complete to the best of your knowledge. You're not giving them all of the information, rather, but you're giving them enough to establish what's called probable cause. And there's probable cause to believe that this person committed a federal crime. Boom. And you can go get him. And then you bring it later. And you usually indict. That's usually how it does after the criminal complaint. And then you bring it out in front and you actually prosecute, or they plea, which is more common. This is quite interesting. This story that happened in Michigan. Okay. The criminal complaint is not for terrorism per se. It's a part of terrorism because they owned a gun. Okay? The affiant goes through and swears out a violation of 18 U.S.C. 924, receiving, transferring, attempting to conspire, transfer firearms, ammunition, knowing or having reasonable cause to believe that the firearms, ammunition will be used to commit a federal crime of terrorism. That's pretty interesting. They got a juvenile, and they've got this person called Muhammad Ali. Mohamed Ali, not Muhammad, my bad. What we find by reading this executive summary is that in August and September of 2025, they were discussing an attack that was never solidified. There was no target, which is the big problem. And they were talking about some overseas involvement. And they bought weapons. Most of the, 73 pages of this criminal complaint, which is very long, by the way. That means there was a running affidavit that they had, and they were prepared to eventually do something with it. But the running affidavit that they were building, it's mostly descriptions of the guns that they have, the accessories. There's an entire page talking about having, actually, we should just roll to it. Let me just find it here real quick. There's an entire page talking about weapon-mounted flashlights. I kid you not. The sight on this weapon is built for close quarter engagements with fast moving targets. An online description from a different retail sells this specific sight that gives the shooter an undeniable tactical advantage over your target. They're quoting marketing. I like, it's a Daniel Defense rifle for whatever it is. Like, really? It gives them a tactical advantage. This is marketing from EOTech, guys. EOTech is the site that they had on there. Based on my training and experience in consultation with other FBI agents, research into historical mass shootings and terrorist attacks, I know attackers often seek to gain tactical advantages over targets and victims. They've got a PSA rifle in here, one of the Saber series. They're talking about magazine pockets and pouches. This is what's in this indictment. Primary Arms, which is a discount retailer online. I bought from them before too. There's an entire page here about the stock that they bought from Brownells. Okay. This is almost exclusively about how they went back and got access to this guy's financial records and what he spent his money on to build out a rifle. That's like halfway decent. Huge chunks of this. There's the ammunition he bought, also PSA. That's a good deal, by the way. Usually. PSA bulk ammo, not a bad place to go and buy it, in my experience. There's a whole thing here about the weapon light. He purchased an O-Light, Odin S, 1500 lumens. This is the part that I found hilarious. Check this out. I highlighted it for you. Based on my training and experience in consultation with other FBI agents, I know that a flashlight while shooting at night or in low light conditions can increase the shooter's overall situational awareness and enhance target identification. From my firearms training while employed as an FBI agent, I know keeping both hands on a weapon improves the shooter's accuracy. Mounting the flashlight to a weapon's rail system removes the need for the shooter to hold a flashlight and the firearm in separate hands, but it still requires momentarily removing the hand from the weapon to turn the lighting on or off. So a weapon-mounted light pressure switch, like the one that Muhammad purchased, he's spelling it differently, increases the shooter's efficiency by allowing the shooter to function the light and the weapon at the same time without moving hands from the firearm. I mean, that's true. That's the dumbest paragraph I've ever seen in an indictment. That's 27 pages in, and it just keeps going. He bought a hollow sun, an optic. Like, folks, if you're a gun person and you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. He bought a Chinese-made optic, which do really good work. He bought himself an O-Light, which is a Chinese knockoff of like the Streamlight or the Surefire lights. It's not bad. I have O-Lights. I've got EOTechs. I have hollow suns. I have all these accessories. This is most of it. And there he is. Oh my God, look at this evil picture of this guy. He's at a gun range. He's like a tubby dude in what does my friend Steve Friend call it? A non-restrictive waistband. There he is, holding on to a weapon system. Gosh, super incriminating. Muslim while buying firearms is essentially it. Now, the crazy thing about all this, and I'm going to scan to the top again because there's no reason not to. The real crazy piece of this is that the main problem with taking down this group, which they did, was that it was too early and they were not able to establish who the hell the overseas connections were. And as far as I can tell, the major issue that Patel had while he went out there and took these folks down, and he did so prematurely, was that he upset the overseas equities who were trying to establish, was there an ISIS cell? They make reference to people in France and in Syria. You would want to know, are there real ISIS cells operating in America, or are these people talking BS online and you can't substantiate it? And as far as I can tell, and everything I hear from the people in the intel world, it sounds like they launched this too soon because he needed a PR win, because Kyle Seraphin was hammering about using that jet ill-awfully, or like in a bad optics way. He tried to distract from Jetgate or Planegate and fired Steve Palmer, whose name is on the screen here, along with a bunch of other people. And he did so without actually identifying the ISIS-US link, which would have been the thing you really wanted to do with this case. And you imagine that the agent who was working this case actually probably knew that too. He'd been a special agent for 13 years. So this is not a newbie. And he's been doing, he has 13 years worth of experience in investigations. I did wonder about that. That's always, I blew that. So let me show you guys what this is. Introduction and background. This is kind of misleading. I am a special agent with the FBI, and I have 13 years of experience in investigations and apprehensions, prosecutions of individuals involved in criminal offenses. I've been employed with the FBI since December of 2022. That's a new agent. Now, previously a cop. Interesting that he made his way to the JTTF right away. What were they doing in December of 2022 in the Toledo or the other JTTFs? Oh, they were exclusively going after J6ers. The same people that were happy to grab the MAGA grandmas, the same ones, the JTTF, that's who did all these cases. The same people who did the MAGA grandma cases are also now doing the Muslim terrorist cases because, we switched focus. Remember, Ron Johnson says that we need people inside. They're being subverted. No, they're not. The FBI is doing what the FBI does. They're doing whatever the hell they want, like they always have. And in the meantime, have they ever done really, really good work on the JTTF? Maybe, but more often they do this. This is one that our fearless leader, who's now in Japan, or he's at massage parlors in Korea, whatever. He's doing his thing. The FBI arrested 2 men in connection with a Harvard Medical School explosion. That sounds like a big deal, doesn't it? I read this yesterday because Patel actually retweeted it. And as you guys probably can guess, I follow a lot of FBI stuff. I'm interested. I had an FBI agent reach out to me and say, hey, you got to look into the Harvard explosion thing. It's complete bullshit. And so allow me to tell you about the bullshit. Fox News touted it FBI arrests men in connection with Harvard Medical School explosion. The arrests were made by the Boston Joint Terrorism Task Force, the JTTF, with assistance from the Harvard University Police. That sounds like a real big deal, doesn't it? Allow me to tell you what Kash Patel said, since he was quoted in there. President Trump's administration has given federal law enforcement a mandate to engage with partners at every level to find bad actors and bring them to justice, and that's exactly what we're going to do, he said in his best Valhalla voice. Do you know what the real story here is, folks? Do you know what's really embarrassing? These are your bad guys. Officials said that the pair that you see on the screen caused the explosion by setting off a Roman candle firework. I'll say it one more time. A singular Roman candle firework. The firework went off inside of a wooden locker on the 4th floor research laboratory, which is part of the Department of Neurobiology, according to the affidavit. Allow me to just tell you, no one was injured in the explosion, officials said, because the building was empty. They set off a firework in a freaking closed locker, and the JTTF responded. Do you remember a better time? You remember we played that soft-bearded guy he doesn't remember the Reagan era. He doesn't remember the Clinton era. I remember a time when kids would put cherry bombs in toilets or something, or they'd put them in trash cans, or maybe they'd put them in somebody's locker, and you'd set off a firework, and you'd get suspended because you were a dumbass, because that's an illegal thing to do, and it's stupid and has the potential of being dangerous, even though you're a stupid kid. And the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force didn't show up. But then again, there was no Joint Terrorism Task Force because that's a 9/11 construct. Why do we still have a JTTF if they're going to run down Roman candles that were set off inside of lockers? I'm not over my skis on this one. This is truly dumb. But luckily, there's the special agent in charge of the Boston field office, and he's a diversity hire. How do I know? Because he was the diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator for a little while, like so many of the others. Now, maybe he's a great guy, but the odds are this is the kind of person that's in management. I can universally say that there are people in FBI management, and they pretty much suck. He is the special agent in charge. He's been there for 6 months, since June of 2025, which means Kash Patel promoted him. But who promoted him before that into the senior executive service? Chris Wray. November 23, he was promoted to special agent in charge of the Los Angeles field office, the criminal division. He was there for 1 year and 8 months. That's about right. 1.5 years, 18 months, 20 months. That's how long you spend. Long enough to figure out what's going on in the division and get your next move forward. Never actually making change, never actually doing anything of value. He was previously at ASAC in Houston. I'll have to ask some folks who worked for him there. He was there during the COVID stuff. He was there from May till August 2020 to 2022. In Washington, D.C., he was the acting chief diversity officer. You know what that looks like? Hey, we need a black guy to be in charge of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Will you be our chief diversity officer in an acting role for a little while? Yeah, no problem. I'm happy with being a token dude. So there he is. And he was a special agent before that, and he was a senior supervisory resident agent, or SSRA, in Lansing and Traverse City and Marquette. So anyway, that's who's in charge now. Hard charger that's going out and willing to do a press conference about a no-shit firework, a Roman candle, not even a cherry bomb, that exploded and shot fireworks inside of a locker and caused no structural damage to the building. They go on and act like this was a real thing, but I kid you not. The FBI announced that it arrested 2 men who used a Roman candle firework. Caused an explosion. The explosion was the firework. The people who were arrested was a guy named Logan Patterson, 18, and Dominic Cardoza, 20, who were there from a rival school, and they were there doing a prank. Are we cooked? What do you think, guys? We're going to be okay? I don't think it's going to work. I think this might be a real problem, because there were real issues that happened before, and you're going to have a socialist run New York City. And Boston's no better off. They're in the same boat. But luckily, we got this going on. Since we're talking about explosions and FBI investigations, can we talk about the last little bit here, which I teased out yesterday? And for those of you that are still with me, thanks so much. Make sure you guys have liked this video. You're not going to see this anywhere else, I don't think, at least not this type of coverage of it. Capitol Police repeatedly used lethal force on protesters early on January 6th. Video shows, reported by my friend Steve Baker and Joe Hanneman, who previously have been guests of this program. They are with Blaze Media. This was released yesterday. This is what I was looking for. You guys ready? The Capitol Police used lethal force. And that lethal force was what is mostly known as less than lethal tactics or less than lethal tools. So you need to understand that you can use something that is referred to as oftentimes in the law enforcement parlance, you hear it called less lethal. It's not less lethal. It's supposed to be less than lethal. But that actually means that you have to use it in the very specific way that it is less than lethal. And here's the example for those of you who don't know. If I were to have a baton, and I was trained on this, and many of you who are law enforcement know that if you have a baton, it is generally considered less than lethal as long as you strike below the shoulders. That means I'm making body shots to your belly and to your back to make you stop doing something. I'm hitting you in the hands or the elbows. These are pressure points like my grandma used to shoot at, or my grandfather used to shoot at the deers with the BB gun. Right in the elbows. That really hurts. You get hit with one of those things, it's not going to be life-changing for you. But it might change your life for a few minutes and make you change your mind about what you're doing. Legs, hands, non-genital strikes, not head, and not shoulders. The minute you take that pain compliance tool where I am now doing like temporary damage to you with my baton, and I take it above the shoulders, I can now inflict what's called deadly force. I can hit you in the neck and kill you. I can hit you in the temple and kill you. I can hit you in the back of the head and turn your lights out. So that becomes a less than lethal tactic or tool used in a lethal manner. And so there's a discrimination point there. And what Baker has discovered here, and is showing because of the way that these things were done, is that not only were the kinetic projectiles being used from these 40 millimeter launchers, not only were they being deployed, they were being deployed in a way that was specifically targeting and used in a lethal manner. They are using what is generally less than lethal force in a lethal way. In a span of less than 10 minutes, a huge crowd of protesters filled the United States Capitol West Plaza beneath the inauguration stage of January 6th. Capitol Police repeatedly used lethal force in the crowd, targeting people in the head, in the neck, in the face, and the upper body, actions that a use of force expert referred to as criminally negligent. During that brief period and span of time, at least 16 people were shot with kinetic impact projectiles, including 9 who took shots to the top of the head, the face, and the base of the neck. This is not foreign to you for those of you who have followed this story. There are people who took it to the face. There's a famous picture of Joshua Black who has like a hole in his cheek because he had a rubber munition, what is generally referred to as less than lethal, but it was deployed in a lethal manner. And that's where it gets really sketchy. These rounds are designed to be shot below the waist or skipped off the pavement to strike legs and cause trauma and pain compliance, as I just described with a baton. None of the rounds observable in the surveillance footage struck below the belt. All of them were in the observably dangerous and potentially lethal category, which means that they were using deadly force. That's a big deal. What is a bigger deal is that they were actually trained specifically to not do that, and the person that you're seeing on the screen is one of the people who did that training. Deputy Police Chief Eric Waldo claimed that the U.S. Capitol Police dispatch at 1:11 p.m. that the officers were using indirect fire, but surveillance video from the department itself contradicts that claim. He also gave repeated warnings to the crowd to disperse or face chemical munitions, but the video, that's what he claimed, the video shows that he did not have a bullhorn, and no warnings could be audibly heard at the ground level video or on the United States Capitol Police surveillance video. They lied about what they did and how they did it. And this is really important, and it's going to go to a much bigger story. He ordered Capitol Police Grenadiers to open fire on the Capitol crowd, or the January 6th crowd, at 1:06 p.m. This is not news to many of you. The part that's news is that they were specifically trained against it, and this is part one of the story. This is only the thread. He said, "I've got a crowd fighting with officers, pushing, throwing projectiles. I've given warnings and chemical munitions. I need less than lethal teams positions." There it is. Less than lethal. That's the way you say it. Positioned above me to identify agitators and start deploying. Launch, launch, launch. Typically, when you start giving them the order, 3 times is how you do it. Fire in the hole, fire in the hole, fire in the hole. Execute, execute, execute. Take your pick. Launch, launch, launch is what he says. Stan Kephart is an expert, use of force, police expert witness, reviewed the footage on January 6th surveillance and said that firing into the crowd with these crowd control munitions from an elevated position into a dense crowd like that and striking targets above the shoulders is both criminally negligent and potentially a lethal act. There is a wealth of clear and convincing evidence here that the police are either not trained or equipped to move, disperse, or arrest stragglers. Instead, they adopted a punishment tactic, inflaming the crowd and resulting in injury that they are going to be responsible for. Have they ever had justice? Is our justice system doing this? Is the FBI doing this and doing this investigation? No. No, Steve Baker and the Blaze are. And that's about it. The grenadiers who fired on the crowd from the Crow's Nest during the first hour included training officer Shani Kirkhoff, Kerkhoff, Sergeant Adam Descamp, Descamp, and Gary Spickrif, that's a hard one, Sprifke, Blaze News learned. There was another officer named Brett Sorrell who was in there and holding a riot shield, the video showed. They asked for comment, and they got no reply. So they had training officers that were actually teaching these people how to do it, and they were the ones who were actually executing this less than lethal stuff. All right. That's really interesting. What's more interesting as you read down is that it amped the crowd up. Steve Baker showed this to people who actually train on this as well, and special operators who use them overseas when they're doing things like embassy protection. When you look at the actual information produced by FN America, which is one of the munitions manufacturers, a lot of you guys know FN, they make what's called the 303. It's a 300 or a 3,000 PSA powered compressed air sending rounds at over 300 feet per second. They've got Tippmann 98. These are paintball guns, essentially, firing pepper balls. I actually remember using Tippmann 98s when I was a kid. They can be fired from less than 50 feet away. These things are meant to strike below the head. In fact, they stress that their patent does not allow people to aim at the head because it actually changes it from a less than lethal munition. A retired Army Special Force operative who has used the FN 303 launcher and other less than lethal munitions overseas said firing at the heads from an elevated perch will cause such rage afterwards that if you were trying to incite a riot, this is how you would go about doing it. If you really want to start a riot, shoot them in the head, he told the Blaze News. You guys seeing this? Because what Steve is proving, even though he says that the crowd struck first, is that there were some very specific attempts to make this worse. And so pain compliance and so on was not being done. They unload all of them, take them out is one of the stuff that was said over the radios. This gets really interesting until we read down to the end here, because I'm not quite sure that everybody understands what's happening. They actually have used these munitions, by the way, in the past, and they've actually killed people. If you got shot in the eye socket, you could die. You guys saw people had their face penetrated, as we talked about Joshua Black, etc. I'm going to keep scanning down to the bottom of this page. I typically aim for the ground, is what people who are professionals said. People who have been in the CDU position, that's their crowd disbursement unit, I think. But the person that's on the screen right there, U.S. Capitol Police Officer Shani Kirkhoff, shows a rubber bullet to soldiers at the Maryland Army National Guard Barracks, 115th Military Police Battalion in Salisbury, Maryland, during a joint training event that took place in January of 2021. This gal, who has kind of a mannish build, as you can tell, does an awful lot of training and has spent time, is actually considered to be like someone who is an expert. Shawnee, Shauni. The thing that's quite interesting that Steve dropped in the end here, which I'm interested in, is while under oath, Kirkhoff said, I typically aim for the ground. And that was not the case. Was actually one of the people who testified in some of the trials. A former civil disturbance unit officer told Blaze that this woman left the U.S. Capitol Police about 6 months after January 6th, and he's been unable to reach her ever since. Her colleagues heard she went to go work for a 3-letter federal agency, he said. She immediately wiped all of her social media, her phone numbers, and her email accounts, and no one was able to reach her after that. It sounds like she committed perjury. So that seems kind of problematic. And it sounds like these things were actually stirred up. I'm concerned. I'm concerned that nobody at the FBI is actually going out after this stuff. I'm concerned that the federal law enforcement that we've been told is actually getting straightened up is too busy like hiring and firing people who did legal cases, and they're not doing the thing they're supposed to be doing. So where's that Dan Bongino who said he was going to be able to solve the mysteries of January 6th and solve these problems? Where is the answers that these people, that 2,000 plus families, got destroyed over this stuff? If you think that they're not going to turn around and come right back at you, and if you think that what's going on in New York City is not sort of a bellwether sort of event that kind of tells you where this country sits and how foolish we are. Do you guys remember that they went out and they patently lied about someone being president of the United States for a very long time and they had no problem doing it? And then when they get put under oath, they just tell you like, yeah, I said things that are false and I don't care. This is Ian Sams. Speaking of soft men who don't even grow beards, this guy was kind of a glowworm looking dude, if you guys recall. It's easy to remember what he looked like. I don't need to pick on him that, but that's what he looks like. He's a glowworm looking guy that served under Biden. He was one of the spokespeople that apparently was like really confident that Joe Biden was awesome and did a great job and was totally tuned in. I think our country was running on autopilot. Most of you think the same. It's really scary when they actually tell you and they don't even feel remorse. It's the same thing as like CNN being worried about Mamdani changing his tune. We can already see what it is.
How often would you say that you interacted with the president in person?
I interacted with him pretty infrequently.
So weekly, monthly, what are we talking about?
Very infrequent. I think I met with the president a handful of times during my tenure in the White House.
I want to introduce Exhibit 2 as it's being passed around. It's a tweet from Alex Thompson at Axios summarizing, pulled a couple quotes of an interview you did on MSNBC, and one of the quotes says, "When I deal with him, he is sharp," him being President Biden, and he is asking tough questions. Do you recall this?
I got to say, that doesn't look anything like the president that I know. When I deal with him, he's sharp, he's asking tough questions. That's the President Biden that so many of us experience every single day.
So this statement, the basis for this statement was your interactions somewhere between 1 and 5 times.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's a bit misleading?
I think it was pretty direct and honest, and said that when I do deal with him, he's sharp, and he was asking incisive questions during my meetings with him.
But you dealt with him 5 times in 24 months. That's not exactly a large scope of knowledge on how he interacts with staff. You don't think it's missing some context?
I don't.
Do you think that statement suggests that you deal with him more than you did?
I don't think so. I mean, I spoke about my own interactions with him. That's the President Biden that we experience every day.
Okay. But to the best of your recollection, 4 meetings, 2 were in person.
2 that were, the 2 that I described to you at the very onset in the Oval, one was a Zoom where he was at Camp David, and I was a participant in the meeting. The phone call, I think there was another meeting, or another engagement, but I can't.
I don't want to belabor you with the boring lies and recollections of someone who dealt with the president 5 times over 24 months and said that he sees him every day on television. All these guys got up there and they just straight lied. They had no problem with it. And they still have no problem with it because it accomplishes their agenda, which is the same thing that we saw Mamdani do. He was this nice guy on TikTok. Oh, how could he be like this? Guys, this is who they are. They've never lied to you about it. They've told you what's important. And they've also told you that you're a bad person if you recognize it. I do think that this is where the backswing is going to go. This is Brett Weinstein from 2019. This is this whole problem of people on the right are now telling you what the purity test is. Again, I told you, you guys have a big tent. You let in a bunch of freaking clowns. That's what the circus has. Clowns and freaks and people who can dance and people who are doing trapeze artistry and animal trainers and all the other weird stuff, right? Big tent. You should think of circus. You've got people now like Mark Levin, and apparently Ben Shapiro's gone on this wagon as well, and Brandon Tatum and all the people that are part of the Turning Point organization and a bunch of other stuff too. And they're telling you what is and what is not acceptable for you to believe. So you're going to see not a huge backswing. You're just going to see some backswing of exactly what Brett Weinstein is talking about. When you start putting like Zoran Mamdani, that's one of the possibilities. And the other possibility is like a bunch of really aggressive, high testosterone, angry men. Because there are still some of those in this country. And it's not going to look good. And they do not care if you call them a bigot. If you force them into against the wall with claims of bigotry, you wear out the ability to use that as anything. Because men today, I certainly am not, are not shamed by you saying things when people who are saying them are obviously liars and disingenuous and will lie to your face to get their outcomes. Weinstein warned about this. I think this is probably what's happening next, for whatever it's worth.
So the concern that I have is that the intersectionalists may end up creating the very enemy they claim they are fighting. They're going to back straight white males against the wall and speak of the devil. White nationalism will emerge from that cohort. And when it does, those people will feel empowered and they will feel self-righteous because they have been accused of things that are, frankly, a form of bigotry. They have been accused by bigots of oppressing others, and they have been told that they are not entitled to well-being, no matter how they individually have behaved. And so what do they have to lose by cooperating together against the intersectionalists and essentially creating the world that the intersectionalists claim already exists? Now, what we should do about this is not entirely clear, but one thing that must happen is we must level up our thinking, and we must understand that backing people against the wall who have a genetic basis for cooperation is very dangerous, because history tells us that movements created by such people can be very destructive, and that ultimately they may turn into a genocidal menace.
Game theoretically, it is
That was 2019.
a terrible mistake. It was a terrible mistake for the DEI crowd to go after straight white males, because it created this very same impulse, like, well, if I can't win because all of the things that I am are declared no good, then what exactly is my incentive to play along with the civilization that's doing that to me? And my point here, I wasn't talking specifically about anti-Semitism in that clip, but the logic is the same. What a terrible error it is to go after anybody who has legitimate questions about the interaction between the United States and not only a foreign state, but a particular administration that has a very hardline bent within that foreign state. You're allowed to have questions. You're an American. That's one of the great things.
It pisses me off that people who have not walked in my shoes, who have no idea who really I am as a person, get to tell me how I get to identify myself or not. So it's like, shut up. I was like, you can't tell me how I get to identify myself. You can't tell me how I get to call myself. Like, screw you. Like, that's not okay. Like, that is not okay. You have no right to tell anybody how they should identify themselves and how they see themselves in the world. Like, you have not walked through my battles. You have not walked through my life. You don't even know my personal story. So that's how that just boils me up.
Let me just say, that was Karine Jean-Pierre, Sideshow Bob, the liar who stood up at the podium and claimed all kinds of false things about our previous president. We don't even know the struggles she's been to. Allow me to say that the struggles she's been to are nothing compared to the friends that I have who have gone through real struggles, who have gone out there and taken life, who have gone out and destroyed things on behalf of this country so that she can live and be a millionaire and complain about her sexual identity that you are supposed to recognize or be really empathetic to. I got to tell you, I do not care. And there's a lot of capability for violence that still exists in my age bracket and below. And you've told everybody there that we're all bad people and we don't care about it anymore. The wolf crying has gone. And so you're going to end up with something really, really ugly here. And that's not threatening. That's just like a recognition of biological reality. You've painted a number of people who have been fringed. And I don't think we're going to do it in New York, because I don't have any interest in going to New York. But I'll tell you, wherever I end up in the next couple of years, better stay the hell away from me. Better keep your freaking government away from me. You better not act like I care about whatever it is that you want. You better stay away from my children. We just had that on the ballot for Texas. Last night I voted that Texas has to have a constitutional amendment to affirm that a parent is the primary decision maker of their child, because we're living in an unserious time. But you're going to find that there are still some serious men that are out there. We don't have soft beards. We don't wear denim shirts having never had hand calluses. So whether I get threats because I'm calling Kash Patel a clown or where I'm calling out Karine Jean-Pierre a clown, they're all clowns. These are all soft actors. Not everybody's a soft actor. I think Brett Weinstein honed in that exists. I'll put that clip over at kyleserafin.com. I know a lot of you guys feel the same way. Don't push us, because it's already there. I think most of us are primed. When I send my mood is Crusader, I think there's a fair number of us that are having that sensibility. That's why I played John Lovell the other day. He has a lighthearted sense on it, which is that you can just go do things. Don't make us do things, folks. You shouldn't. Because most of us have been, I think a handful of folks that I know have been preparing their whole life. We just don't have to do it. But as my buddy Steve Friend once told me, The first round in your weapon that's meant to defend your family has already been fired. It's just a question of whether or not the target presents itself or you die first. If you end up expiring and your life goes all the way to the end, then lucky you. And if not, then the round's already been fired. So there's no decision. It's just a matter of target presentation. I think that's what we're looking at here. I do have something funny for you guys. Let me just go ahead and encourage you again. Like the video, like the program, follow us over on Spotify. More and more of you finding us on Spotify is really cool because I think it's the best way to watch it, and nobody has told me otherwise. So check it out, KyleSerafinshow.com. You guys can also watch over here. If you're watching on Rumble, thumbs up, put us on the leaderboard. Same story, YouTube, boost the algo, drop me a comment, tell me what you agree with, tell me what you don't agree with, tell me what you love. Tell me who your favorite character was in Escape from New York. Or if you think we should build that wall around it, I don't care. Subscribe to the channel there, X. You guys know what to do. Go watch us on one of the other channels. We don't get monetized that well on X. So if you guys want to watch us and help the show, that's how you do it. Locals, KyleSerafin.com. Those are all the places. That's it. Let's do something funny. I like Tyler Fisher. I don't think he's getting enough play these days. Tyler Fisher's a comedian. He's apparently in Austin. He's going to move back to New York because he's just had enough of this good life here.
Hi, guys. Comedian, actor Tyler Fisher here. And I just made the decision. I am moving back to New York City. I've been in Texas for a year, and I have to be there for Mamdani. I just do. I know a lot of people will be surprised by this, but like, dude, I'm so sick of living in Texas where I don't even pay state income tax. Think about that. So I have to like find things to do with my money. Like this is my third coffee of the day. I'm going to buy a paddleboard. I'm hiking, new shoes. And it's like, I'm just done with it. I have to give up 52% of my income. I have a car, which is like, it's so toxic cis white male of me. You know what I mean? And they're charging money to take buses here. Charging money. So what do homeless people do if they want to go on there and sleep and piss and shit and stab somebody? They have to go and fundraise to get on a bus? Like, what the fuck? So I'm just going to get back there and get back to the Gays for Palestine protests. Even the bikers aren't assholes. And like, nobody has assaulted me today. I'm sitting here, literally, I got cash hanging out of my pockets. No one's called me a racist, toxic, cis white male. What am I doing here? America's to be abused and live in a tiny studio apartment and welcome illegal migrants into your space. I'm going to have probably 10 living with me, sharing a bed, because I care. And my dating life here is amazing. Like, women, they like when I take charge. They like when I lead. They're nice. They're feminine. Barf, gag me.
I prefer a woman with a shaved head, 8 cats, who hates men, the patriarchy, but still wants me to pay the bill.
And what if I get attacked right now? What am I supposed to call the racist cops? No. Mamdani's gonna have therapists come and talk out the problems. Hey, excuse me, why did you just shoot that guy in the face? Maybe it's a childhood fear of eye contact. Really get to the bottom of the problem, you know? I'm tired of feeling like a man because there is no gender. You know,
there's more and more of that. If you guys don't follow Tyler Fisher, you should. He's hysterical. And yes, obviously, that was satire. If you guys don't know, he got kicked off Gutfield too. He decided not to go back on Gutfield because they accused him of being a sexist, some scandal nonsense. And he actually had a really long expo on that I watched. And I feel bad for the guy because he seems like he's got the right sense of humor for this program too. That's it for today. I know we went really long. I think tomorrow is going to be really exciting and potentially Friday being even more so. So stick around, share the show, subscribe if you haven't. I'm just looking with some information that I'm not able to show you yet. I think we're going to have a good time. God bless you. Hang in there. Go have a good day. You don't live in New York City, so everything's okay.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.